for anything that I do. I don't. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. I give all the credit for everything that I do to the good Lord. Praise the Lord. Amen. And I don't want to come here sounding like some kind of evangelist who's going to start shoving something down your throat. But I do believe in God. And I believe that God gives and takes away, and that we have to have gratitude for everything in our lives. Everything. Because without God, we're nothing. And I really believe that. And I think that probably human arrogance is the source of all problems. And if we could just be a little more humble and just give it up to God, we might be a little better off, you know? I think. I really believe that. So, and if the good Lord doesn't want me to play good that night, I'm certainly not going to sit there and cuss him out. I can't do that, you know, because I don't know what's in his plan. All I can do is the best that I can do with what he gave me. And really make an effort and just say, please help me. So, yeah, I went up there with a blank slate. And one thing led to another. So. You're welcome. Thank you very much. One at a time, one at a time. So, before, since I see I have a slew of questions, I can't answer them all at the same time. I would like to take this time to sincerely, once again, thank all the guys that drums over me, Jürgen and Herb, for inviting me here. And, yeah, let's give it up for nice time. Yeah, great stuff.
On the way up here, we were talking about feel. Persons in a band try and create a feel. But what if the feel between the bass player or the producer and the drummer don't match? Should you hold on to your own feel and say, this is me, here you have it, do with it? Or should you put in a lot of effort and try to pick up the feel of the producer or the other player?
Can you break on that? Feels in one song?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The question was, they were talking about feel, okay? Again, it's that thing in which really everything has to have some kind of feeling. So, the question was, you know, if you're playing in a group situation and the feel between you and the bass player and the producer is completely different, should you as the drummer hold on to what you have and stand your ground, or should you go with this guy or that guy? Well, it's a balancing act, okay? But I would say that, you know, it's been said that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. But if you are the strongest link in the chain and you're the only strong link in the chain, then you're going to have to basically sit there and stand your ground, and it's a tough thing to do. Now, again, the reason I say it's a balancing act is because it's very situational in some ways. It's very conditional, because if you're playing with a click and you're recording, if you're the only one that can play with the click, then let's say that you're playing perfectly with the click every time and they're not. And they're consistently playing ahead, and you're playing perfectly with the click. So you do 3 or 4 takes, and you keep doing the same thing. And they keep doing the same thing. And all of a sudden everybody says, well, it doesn't feel good. Well, they're not going to give because they rush. And you're trying to stand your ground and they're not going with you. Well, now you've got to try to give a little bit. Now you've got to try to give and kind of go with them. Yeah, you could suggest a lot of different things. You could say, listen, why don't you take the click out of your phones and play with me? I'll just play with the click. I've done that before. Okay, so you could do that, and you know, eventually it's a really hard thing to do. You kind of have to. It's really tough, but you have to make that executive decision when you're in that situation and be able to bend. But ultimately, I find that when if a bass player is really wishy-washy in terms of his time, then I've got to really, I mean, if I were to do that, the whole thing would fall apart. So you could see that as well. So you have to be very, very strong internally in terms of your sense of time. That's it, really. And when you do that confidently, with love, people will trust you, because basically you want to establish trust. And that's the bottom line for any kind of relationship on earth. So if you're in a group situation and you don't have trust between the players, you basically have nothing. Then we're back to, hey, like I'm doing my own thing, and then we're back to human arrogance is the source of all problems, you see. Okay, well, you've got to have trust. So you got to make them trust you. And not like a politician, but really make them trust you, because you're the truth here. You're doing it, and it's unmistakable. And here I am, lean on me. You know, that's what you got to do. Yes?
All right. Got one question concerning equipment, if you don't mind.
No, no.
One of the central statements of your Gretsch endorsement campaign is back to simplicity, and which is real floor toms without suspension systems, something like this. When you're in the studio, serious question, would you take this kit as it is, or would you use any further suspension systems, gas system or rims, something like that? I've been in a producer situation where I brought two kits, one Tama Swing Star with rims, and a Gretsch set, and the engineer wouldn't even listen to the Gretsch set. He said, take that for the rims. So, that's
Okay. Whoa, excuse me. Did everyone Did everyone hear that question? Yes? Okay. That's a good question. In all honesty, I put my money where my mouth is. Okay. And yes, I would take this kid into a studio. Herb, is there any water back there? Yeah, sure. Did I take it? Okay. Wow, I'm sweating a lot. I'm a sweaty guy. I just sweat a lot when I play. Thank you. Easy there. But really, I feel like James Brown. Please. James Brown, ladies and gentlemen. A boxer. No, actually, believe it or not, that happened to me. I was working in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, and the Gretsch company had sent a kit to Minneapolis, the same number of drums but smaller sizes, and the guy who invented the rim system is a friend of mine. He's called Gary Gogger. And he was there, because they sent me one snare drum, and I needed extra snare drums. So Gary brought me some of his vintage snare drums to play, because here I was stuck with one snare drum because they sent the drums really fast, and wow, they just barely made it there. And you know what? I used them without any rims, and they sounded great. The recording environment is a strange environment, because it's gone through so many changes, and it's like anything else. When a change occurs, sometimes people latch onto it in the industry, and all of a sudden, everybody started using rims, and they're a great thing. And and the reason that they did it was because sometimes you could actually hear the drum being choked when you put it on the mount. But I think that it's also a tuning question. I've kind of noticed that when you tune a drum and you kind of tweak it and mess with it a little bit, you'll find a fundamental and it will resonate. Secondly, Secondly, how much resonance do you need? I mean, how long do you want the tom-tom to ring? See, because the whole principle is you've got one tom coming off of a stand here, another tom coming off of another stand. They're close mic'd. Okay, there's a mic on each tom-tom. So, now you have what isolation, so to speak. However, when you hit the drum, the decay goes on for 4 seconds. So, even though it's not like physically on a mount connected to another drum, you're still going to have a sympathetic vibration from the second drum when you hit the first one anyway, because they're so open. So, I don't get it. Because Gretsch drums, in the first place, ring a lot. So if you tune them, and plus, what if they choked a little bit? So what? You know, I remember when I was recording with Gino Vanelli many years ago, the whole trend was, you know, supreme isolation. I mean, I remember when guys used to tape wallets on the snare drum, like a wallet with a lot of thick tape, and we took 3 days to get a drum sound on the Nightwalker record, and I ended up using a Ludwig see-through drum set with the mic stuck up inside the drums for isolation with single heads. Like they weren't double-headed drums, they were single-headed. You know, 3 days to get a sound, and
The sound was great.
yeah, and so when I went into Minneapolis, okay, now I'm talking about, this engineer was great. And like this guy put his mics on the drums. If you get a guy in there, you know he's got a good drum set, you tune him well. He knows how to put the mics because he knows how the mics hear the drums. You get a guy who knows how to tweak the knobs right, you're in business. So again, okay, that might lead you to say, yeah, but see, you're Vinnie, and when you go in there, they're going to go, oh, yes, master, no, master. Not really. I can't, you know, I've got to be, because I work for new clients as well, and, you know, when I go in there, I want to sound good. I want my drums to sound good, and I want the record, it's going to go on the record. I want the record to sound good, you know. I'm not going to go in there with some attitude like, hey, man, do some of my drums, okay? Take it or leave it, man. And they really sound like crap, right? I wouldn't do that. I would just say, look, I mean, they sound good, okay? You know, they don't have, like, they're not floating in midair, but so what? And so, you know, there's that old touchy thing. Is that okay? They come into the bass drum. Do you mind? Okay. So it's you know, and for me, it is a simple. And I remember the old days when I was, you know, as a kid, I just like put a tom-tom on, another one, and unscrew the legs. Boom! There's a drum set. You know. It's like, now it's like all these. I feel like I'm building a house. You know. And that's okay, because everybody has a lot of different things. Okay, I want this tambourine attachment to go here, and I'm going to have my little timbales, and I'm going to have like a bell tree, and I'll have this, and that's cool. But I mean, basically, you know, I think that the reference point has gotten a little bit diffuse, you know, and I just wanted to kind of come back to, you know, square one again and start from there. Like, I can't see having a 25-pound cymbal stand for a splash cymbal. I don't think so, you know. I'd rather just have like a little arm that's a little thing, you know, that you just go, and you put on your cymbal stand, and why can't they make those anymore? Why can't you just put a little tiny arm, and just put it on, you know? So, I'm trying to get back to single brace stands and all that sort of thing, and also just for the record, you know, I've done sessions in New York City where these guys in New York, a lot of they do a lot of jingles, commercials, so they'll have one drum set there, and they're used to miking the same drum set every day, and you go in there and you can't believe how bad the drums sound. They sound like cardboard, and then when you go in the control room, they sound real. So these guys mess with them all the time. So it's really half on them and it's half on you. I mean, yes, if you have a great set of drums, all they have to do is put good mics, place them right, and push the faders up. On the other hand, you know, you've got a console in there that costs $1 million? I think you could do something with it. You know, it is a studio, remember? Costs $200 an hour. Let's use it. You know, so it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. One more over here.
I have a question about the song Dance Walk.
What is it?
The month of the Dance Walk. We have come up with old melody. Sounding very
Oh, yeah, the question was about a track that I played on a Jennifer Warnes record called The Hunter, and if I was thinking about the melody of the song, because it's very melodic, I actually don't remember. I really, honestly, there's so many things I've had that it's really difficult for me to remember what it was that I actually played, you know. If a lot of people ask me about things that I did on this record or that record, it's difficult for me to remember, you know. So, I'm sorry. Oh, I see one right there.
simple question. What's your favorite record you played on?
My favorite record that I played on?
Joe's Garage.
Well, that's kind of a hard one to say. Yeah, probably Joe's Garage is one of them. You know, maybe I'm kind of fond of this record that Allan Holdsworth record called Secrets that I played on. I like that record a lot.
Do you have some music before, or how is Allan doing this when it comes to the studio?
The question was how we did the record. Here's what we did. Jimmy Johnson, the bass player, we went into a small studio, and it was just me and Jimmy playing. And Jimmy took some tablet paper and just wrote out bar lines and like pushes, you know, like little, okay, this is going to push and this is going to, and he just wrote figures and bar lines. And that was it. And then we just click one, you know, click, 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 click. And we just heard, yeah. Allan never played. There was some synthesizer pads on tape, just some pads, you know, chords, like really ethereal sounding kind of pads, and we just was reading the little tablet paper. And we did 2 takes on every tune. A lot of them were first takes. Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was really, we got lucky. And all the stuff was overdubbed, everything. It was just me and Jimmy and a bass player with a click track and some synth pads mostly. Weird, huh? Especially on those tunes. I know.
How was a normal practice day for you?
A normal practice day for me is not really a lot. I might practice. I mean, if I'm lucky, I'll try to get an hour in a day, maybe 45 minutes. But there's a lot of times where, you know, a few days go by and I don't play at all. Or sometimes I'll work on sessions, and I'll just kind of fiddle around in between takes on a session, you know, if nobody's in the room, or sometimes I won't warm up at all. But usually, you know, I spent a lot of years doing that, and especially when I was playing live with Sting, you know, what I would do is we were playing a couple of hours every night, and I would play on the pad for half an hour before, and I would just warm up on the pad. I would try to stretch a little bit and do some stretching and play real slow. You know, I would. Want a pad? Yeah. Okay, Herb. I'll take a pad. I'll just kind of show you that this is what I do. It's nothing really. And then I play kind of like I was just playing now, but like I won't necessarily always go full bore. You know, this was hard for me because, I mean, that's like almost an hour of full-out playing. And it's, whew. So I pace myself a little more when I practice. And sometimes I'll sit down and practice. I could even show you on the drums what I do. It might be sound a little boring, you know. And, I'll just take my sticks and do this. Do that with each hand, and then I do this. And then I go like this. You know, and then I go like this. And then I go like this. Then I go like this. Yeah, and then sometimes I go like this, and I basically stretch. And literally, here's like what I would do on a pad on a warm-up. I would sit there. And an old roommate of mine at Berkeley programmed this into my head years ago. He said, start really slow. He said, Joe Morello taught me this. Just play full strokes. Let the stick have its wish. Just start from an up position, make a downstroke with a fairly good amount of force, and just let the stick come up by itself. So I started doing that, you know, just to check my form. And I would do one hand at a time. And then gradually I'd speed it up. And I would do the other hand. And so then maybe I would start putting them together. That's it. Play some singles, some doubles, and eventually speed up and work my way into different patterns where I would play, you know, 8 notes with each hand, 9, etc., and then start playing flams, and then start playing roughs, and then start playing combinations, and then my friend Ken Denard taught me this thing called a 100-count warm-up. We play, you know, 8 beats is a quarter note, so you count like 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100-count warm-up, singles. And then I would do another exercise called a consistency exercise, where I would play singles, doubles, and paradiddles. Doubles, paradiddles. So the idea is to try to make it sound fairly smooth. So doubles, singles, doubles, diddles. So things like that. And you can hear that on that pattern. You can't believe you can hear that. I'm deaf. And there's all kinds of things that we're playing doubles, accenting the second note. Those things come in handy when you're going to play shuffles, you know. Because the motion. I'm going to go behind the drums here. Get back there. Is it on back there? Yes, it is. It's a mess. Unbelievable. Oh, you're not going to take me anywhere. Never go to an Italian restaurant with me. I have sauce all over the place. Everything's a mess. So, and those things are good for, you know, when you're playing, and you're playing these, you start accenting the second note. Good for shuffles, see, because or anything else. You're going to play these funk beats. comes into play, so it helps. It's very helpful, you know. And so I'm playing, and sometimes I just sit down behind the drums, and I'll just do that, and then I'll just play, you know, like... really, it's just things, you know... that'll center me technically, you know, and or other times I'll just sit down and just play. So, and I think that's okay too, because then you don't feel so rigid where you have to do the same thing all the time. I think probably the most important thing is that whatever you do, that you don't kind of force it too much too quick, and that you're operating from basically a state of relaxation, which can be tough because we all get nervous, or we all get hyped up with a lot of energy, and then the next thing you know, we're like this. So it's a difficult thing, you know, to maintain that relaxation and still have some intensity. Yeah. So that's basically it. That's all that I do. I probably should start practicing some new stuff, but so far I haven't. Okay, I see.
Yeah, you talked about a good drum sound. So how do you tune your drum set normally? Do you tune it different for the studio or for live situations or for clinics? Do you tune it in tones, like intervals, or how do you tune it?
Well, to be honest with you, today my friend Herb tuned them. And a lot of times when I go into the studio, my cartage guy will tune them up, and I'll just tweak them. These drums are big drums. And, you know, in a clinic situation, I want the drums to speak, so that when they're playable, when they're really, really dead, they don't respond as well, and I like them to be kind of responsive. But in a studio, I wouldn't tune them much differently than I would tune them live. I mean, to me, if a drum sounds good, it sounds good. It's just, sometimes, like, Herb and I were talking about this today, where you make the drum play in a playable zone, and then it has a lot of overtones, but it's playable, especially when it's a big drum. And it sounds jazzy. So, you know, you get into that sort of pocket where you get these overtones in. But generally, I like to have a lot of spread on the drums, and I don't like them when they're always real low and thuddy. I don't prefer that kind of sound a lot of the times. I like to have kind of a spread. I want the low toms to be really low, and these to have kind of a nice range in between them. Now, it's kind of hard to do when you have two drums that are really big and very close together in size, but it can be done. Herb, why don't you expound on this with me a little bit here? Yeah. Let's talk about tuning here. Let's bring Herb out and give you some ideas.
Okay. Sprichst Deutsch, ja?
Ja.
Grundsätzlich die Basis ist, dass jede Trommel eine eigene Resonanz hat, in der sie wirklich gut klingt. Und meistens erreicht man die, indem man zunächst mal beide Quelle in etwa gleich stimmt. Ich meine, das kennst du schon alles mal ausprobiert, wo denn dieser Punkt überhaupt ist. Und dann geht man ein bisschen hoch und ein bisschen runter und dann hast du es meistens schon. Ich bin mir jetzt auch nicht dabei und wir machen das halt im Jahr, im Laden seit 20 Jahren, mehr oder weniger jeden Tag und ich kann das auch nicht, ehrlich gesagt nicht so genau erklären, aber es gibt ein paar Tricks. Einer hat beispielsweise unser Drumpapst Manny von Bohr mal in seinem Video genannt, das ist dieses Visual Tuning, das heißt, du drückst einfach mit dem Finger in die Fellmitte und guckst mal, wo noch Falten sind, gleichst die ein bisschen aus, dann bist du meistens ruckzuck schon am guten Ende des Sounds von der Trommel. Und dann muss man halt mal schauen, was man mit Fällen noch machen kann, wie der persönliche Geschmack auch ist. Meistens ist es so, dass es einen unteren Punkt gibt, wo die Trommel sehr gut klingt, einen, wenn man so circa eine Quart oder eine Quint höher stimmt, so im jazzigen Bereich, wo die Trommel richtig offen und hoch klingt, da klingt es halt auch nochmal schön. Jeder Set, das kam an, wir haben, wie gesagt, die Fälle drauf gemacht, Werk stimmte, das war es eigentlich schon und mir hat es gefallen.
See, I told you. So there you go. Funny thing. Drum tuning, yeah. And did you talk about like the relationship to the top and the bottom head at all?
Yeah.
Because that's always a tough one too. Most people don't understand. I go by feel, and you know, I try to find a good fundamental that the drum wants to. The shell will find its own pitch. But sometimes they're too close together, so I have to fiddle with it. And I really go by feel. I've got to be honest with you. I just use my ear and my feel. I don't have any kind of technique, but I just fiddle with both heads until it sounds good. Yeah, exactly. The room and all that sort of thing. You know, it's like one of those things you just got to do it. I think. I don't know. Like I read once. I once read a book. This guy had this book on drum tuning, and he said, snare drum, tighten the bottom head as tight as possible. That's it. You know, and I thought, okay, well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Cool. Maybe it works for him. I don't know. Maybe I should try that. I don't know if you could read about it in a book. I mean, you could read about it, but then you got to use your ear, don't you? It's about hearing it, you know? You have to feel it and hear it. So.
You talk a lot of click tracks in the studio. I have a question. When do you play your last live studio track or recording?
When did I play?
A complete band.
When did I play my last studio date with a complete band?
Yeah, live.
Last week. It's not really normal anymore. The only place that it happens a lot is in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not joking, because they cut everything live there. In fact, I went from Nashville. I played on a record there for a country pop artist called Lori Morgan. It was all cut live. And then I went back to LA last week and I did a session with a girl called Jewel. And we all cut live with a click. Everybody played together. And I like that. I like it. Yeah, I like it because, I mean, you know what? I'll tell you why I like it. Because you can get really used to playing with machines, and then the machine's always perfect, right? So you can mess with the feel. So then all of a sudden, if you play with live players, you can get into that attitude real quick of, oh man, you're rushing, you know? Or like, see, you got to learn how to play with people. You got to do it. It's really the bottom line. And so then you start thinking, well, the heck with the click. This is feeling really good, you know? And plus, if the guys can really play, come on, let's face it, it's more fun because anything can happen. Each take is different. And I think nowadays there's too many people doing it like separately, and everybody's, you know, fiddling around with Pro Tools and taking a track that's just mediocre and then chopping it up. And, you know, and then it's like, if you're going to learn to be a musician, you want to try to play, right? You want to have some skill and just try to play it better. I mean, you have to have a hallmark to try to achieve something here. You have to have something to want to aspire to play together and play with quality so that you don't need to fiddle around with these things. Do you know what I mean? They spend more time fiddling around with it than they do learning how to play anymore. It's awful, I think.
What's that like with Sting?
What was it like with Sting?
Yes.
In terms of what?
The situation we referred to just right now. Is he fiddling?
No. He doesn't like do that, take tracks and put them into Pro Tools. No. This is nothing against Pro Tools, by the way. I mean, any tool can be useful. But what Sting would do is we cut everything live. And we would just do multiple takes until we felt that we had one that felt right with everybody. And it's like, that's a good thing, because then if you're okay, say you was the drummer, you did 3 takes, and all of a sudden they want to do 3 more. It's really easy to go, yeah, but my stuff was great, man. You have to really be there for everybody else and try to be consistently good. And don't sit there and go, yeah, okay, it is true that if you get a good drum track, you could fix other things. But leave that to the last resort. Try to get it all together, and then you get a good vibe, We did that on a Sting record where we cut one track, and it was actually the demo. And then we went back a week later to try to recut it, because the sounds got better and whatever. We couldn't match it. We couldn't. And here's the same guys playing the same song 20 times again, could not match the feel. That's how elusive feel can be, collective feel is. You couldn't match it. Could not do it. Same guys, same song. So go figure, It's magic, It happens or it doesn't. Yes?
I heard that in the, I guess, more distant past, you used to be relatively unhappy with your own playing. Is that true, and how did you overcome that?
He said that in a distant past that he heard that I used to be relatively unhappy with my own playing. Is it true, and how did I overcome that? It is true. I can't say that I've completely overcome it. However, now I try to just, rather than focus on saying, oh, gee, this is terrible, and what am I going to do? I try really to get beyond it and just be in the moment where I'm at and look forward and just, it's a hard thing to overcome. What I did was, part of the reason is because I was having problems with my hands. So when I was playing with Frank Zappa especially, we played 2 shows a night, 2.5 hours each, 2-hour sound checks, and loud. And then there were drum solos, and so I got and I was getting tendonitis, and I started choking up on the stick. So after a while, I thought, my hands would bleed, and it got really awful. So I thought, wait a minute, there's got to be something wrong I'm doing here. What can I do to make it more right? So I went to LA. I was about 30, 31 years old or something. I went to a guy in LA called Murray Spivack, who was he died a few years ago. And he was a very famous drum teacher it was a one surface learning. His thing was physical motion, muscle memory, physics, being efficient, proper form, and all that sort of thing. That's what Murray did. So I went there, and I went with Murray, and then I went to another guy who studied with Murray, that modified Murray's thing a little bit, called Richard Wilson. Now this stuff was probably, I would say, like a modified version of kind of the Moeller sort of technique. But Murray's thing really was economy of motion. Murray, one of the things Murray told me was that, see, the Moeller technique, I'm going to just back up a little bit and sidetrack here. The Moeller technique is, Sanford Moeller observed that many swift drummers had common characteristics in their motion. And that's how he developed what he named the Molo technique, from observing common characteristics that most swift drummers seem to have. There was a natural motion, like if you're going to throw a baseball, or if you're going to swim or whatever. Like, what happens is the graduated series of motions in the arm is that, well, look what's happening. Here comes the shoulder. Look where the elbow goes. Now see how the wrist is? As opposed to that. Like I'm not hammering a nail into a wall, So that's the difference. So Murray taught me that several things. Some things about hand position, where the fulcrum was actually between these two fingers, and that there would be a gap here, and there were various things, and that motion did exist, which is sort of a whip-like motion that regenerates the stroke. Okay, but what he taught me was that he said that volume came from the velocity of the stick, not from the height. So rather than getting the same volume from up here, all the way up here, I gotta sit down here. You this mic, rather than having to do that, it's like if you just, the speed that you hit the drum from whatever point, would determine the volume. So that's, his thing was that it came from velocity. And you know what? That helped me a lot because sometimes I would find myself how can you go, you can't do that. Your sticks are going to get clocked in the way, and there's just no way you can do that. And also, you see guys exaggerating the motion. I do it too. I'll get excited, You can exaggerate it, but it's the idea. Motion, but you kind of want to condense it a little bit. So once the exaggeration of it, I think, really is to learn the motion. And then if you think about it, it's really natural, because you wouldn't want to go. How could you? What other way is there that's really? Think about it. Think about it. It's really. It's all that sort of, Even when you play a groove on the hi-hat, Guys do it when they don't know it, They're doing it without knowing it. And then we're going to have a moment. Yes?
What technique do you use with your left hand on traditional grips? Do you use two-finger control like Dave Weckl shows, or what do you use?
Well, the technique that I use, yeah, a lot of times, I'll use that technique if I'm going to use the fingers. Sometimes I can use it like this, with one finger. But usually, you can see my hand. see that it's not like this, and it's not like that. It's kind of like this. Can you see that?
Stand up.
Yes.
Okay, it's like. Can you see that? It's not like this. It's not like that. It's not like that. So I kind of, if you could imagine having a stick there, right? Or you wouldn't want it really to curve back. You see? You would. I try to have it so that it's, yeah. And so I will use that. I'll use that finger. If I'm going to use finger control, you know, I'll use it. So if I'm playing doubles, so you can see that it comes into play. I'll go there. I'll go right in there, just like that. That's how I do it. It shifts. You know, the hand position shifts for me. And sometimes I use my wrist. Use that. So I can either use the fingers or the wrist. The wrist makes like a circular motion, which is derivative from that molar thing, the whip. And then I find that if I'm like that, then that way you can make a good solid stroke, because Freddie Gruber actually even said this. He said once he did it in the air and it made a lot of sense. He kept doing this. He kept going, this is this. This is this. And I kept looking at it, right? And I was looking at it going, I thought, gee, that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? Because now you're not going from here to there. You know, it's really, he was trying to show me the similarity. So that when you're locked like that, you're really, yeah, see? You know, pretty loud. You know, he goes, how can you do that traditional grip? That's how, you know. Just like that, you know. So, it's like, you know, what you're doing is you're locking your arm. It's the same. And Tony Williams had that down. So when you lock your arm, the whip and the lock. You have to be careful, because if you get too stiff, like that, then you can either lock up, and all of a sudden you got no finesse. So again, you got to find a way to bounce it. While you've got that power there.